Now let's talk about consensus. Consensus is the general agreement about an opinion that is shared by all the people in a group. In the Ahead of the Curve 2014 summer workshop, participants had to go through a protocol and come to consensus or agreement on all of the item classification decisions. Consensus challenges you to articulate your reasoning and defend your claims using evidence. We hope that going through this modified consensus that you will be challenged by the thinking of others and that you are forced to look at the scenario in a different light. One of the benefits of going through consensus is the synergistic effects of the process. More is learned from the viewpoints of others and from these multiple perspectives than can be gained from a sole individual's perspective. A few goals we have for consensus is that you understand the protocol for coming to agreement, that you're prepared to use the consensus protocol, and that you understand consensus means you can live with the decision made by the group. Here is a modified version of the consensus protocol that was given in the Ahead of the Curve summer workshop. For the purpose of PAL instruction, we're going to modify this into a claims evidence reasoning format, but it is helpful for you to understand what participants from the summer had to go through. In addition, what live consensus looks like in case you hope to replicate the processes that you have learned through taking this course in a face-to-face format. So first, there's a round-robin format where everyone goes around and states their alignment decision. In this, it is not necessary to explain the rationale for the claim. If after going through the round robin and everyone is already in agreement with their alignment decision, there is no need to go through consensus. Therefore, you can record the decision and move on to the next item. However, if you are not all in agreement through the first round of the round robin, begin round 2, where you have 30 seconds to justify your choice or your rationale for making that classification decision. Here, you can also ask clarifying questions, but you should not spend more than 30 seconds on reasoning for the decision. After all of the potential classifications have been vetted with the group, move on to the round-robin format again. Now hearing everyone's rationale and evidence supporting their reasoning for their classification, you'll go around and state your choice or your revised choice. Now would be the time for individuals to state their final decision for the item. Here it is important to note again that consensus means you can live with the decision, not necessarily that it was your primary choice. Using the 0 to 1 scale, it'll be necessary to state whether or not they can agree, that is their preference. If they can concede, that means they can live with the decision that the majority of the group have. Or, if they're not okay with the majority and they disagree, now record the vote for the majority. And if there are any zeros for this item, you can flag it for further review. So some major takeaways from going through consensus. This is a task-based learning opportunity, so doing really helps solidify the understanding. Also, the standards call for productive struggle, therefore it's important for teachers to also experience productive struggle, especially in this sort of collaborative environment. Another major takeaway is that collaboration and cooperation are key. This allows individuals to see multiple points of view that also help accelerate learning. It is important to understand that practice makes perfect. Once is not enough. Regular opportunities for hands-on or experiential learning are necessary to increase one's comprehension and overall understanding of the content. Now let's practice with a real science item. From going through the discussion thread, I have selected this group's items to gain consensus on. The first item we are going to discuss is the genetic inherited disease. I will moderate the discussion and facilitate our consensus protocol. We will go in round-robin style, starting with Brooke, followed by Jared, then Chris, then Jake, and lastly Drea. This process should take no more than 5 minutes. We will start by going around in order and stating our alignment. Brooke, will you please start?
I chose Life Science 1, from molecules to organisms, structures, and processes. I agree.
I also agree.
Agree.
I agree as well.
Since we all have the same answer for the disciplinary core idea, can we please go through the component DCI?
I chose Life Science 1A, Structure and Function.
I agree.
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 Since we all had the same information for the component DCI, we can now move on to the science engineering practice, or practice. Brooke, will you please start with the practice?
For the Science and Engineering Practice 6, Constructing Explanations for the Science and Designing Solutions for Engineering.
I agree.
I agree.
Sounds good to me.
I agree as well.
Great! So since we all had the same information for the practice, let's move on to the cross-cutting concept. Brooke, will you please start and tell us what you had for your cross-cutting concept?
I said Cross-Cutting Concept 2, Cause and Effect.
I disagree.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with that one.
I agree.
Since Jared and Jake had different answers, can you guys please tell us why you chose what you did for cross-cutting concepts and your rationale for doing so?
For the cross-cutting concept, I chose 6, Structure and Function. Exactly. That's exactly what I chose.
Now that we have heard from Jared and Jake, does anybody have any clarifying questions they would like to ask?
I do. Jared, in what ways does a student describe their knowledge of how a virus is shaped and how its structure influences its function?
That is a good question. This information was provided in the text and it was not required of the question. So to me, it looks like structure and function might not be a good match. I thought the student had to describe how bioengineering works with recombinant DNA to support how an inherited disease can realistically be treated with technology. I guess from reading the scoring guidelines, I didn't recognize the assessment boundary of this prompt.
Excellent observations and clarifying questions. From deliberating on the evidence and from our judgment support, we can now again go around and state our choices or our revised choices. Brooke, will you please start what you have for cross-cutting concept?
Chose Cross-Cutting Concepts 2, Cause and Effect.
Cross-cutting concept 2, cause and effect.
Cause and effect.
Same Z's.
And I'm going to stick with 2 as well.
Great. Since we all came to full agreement on this item, there is no need to rate our level of agreement. I will record our consensus of cross-cutting concept 2, which is cause and effect. Now we can move on. For simplicity and brevity, we opted not to deliberate on the grade band as well as the depth of knowledge and the revised Bloom's taxonomy. However, for your consensus rounds, as necessary or as time allows, please vet all variables for consensus.